I am so pleased to be joined by Jim Fitzgerald, the founder and president of ColdWater Media. Jim, thanks so much for being here.
Oh, you bet.
So tell us a little bit about ColdWater Media and what you all do.
ColdWater Media got started in 2000, basically because my son came home from Bible class and said he thought it was boring from his Christian school, and at the time I had sold my previous company. I was looking for something to do. I'd been involved in the making of a couple of documentaries with a friend that I'd funded. He had a small production company, and I had learned a little bit about what the production business is all about, and that was my son's comment, combined with my wife had given me a book from Chuck Colson, How Now Shall We Live, which kind of opened my eyes to the concept of Christian worldview for the first time. And the combination of those two things inspired me to start a media company and create excellent media. I was not seeing a lot of excellent conservative Christian media at the time.
Where does the name come from, ColdWater Media?
Well, it's a combination of a number of things. I think my wife was getting a catalog from Coldwater Creek at the time, a clothing store, yeah. And I thought, oh, that's kind of an interesting combination of words. And then the idea of throwing cold water on an old idea, was appealing. And then also the Bible verse where it talks about, giving a cup of cold water. And that you won't lose your salvation in the process. So I thought it didn't sound Christian-y, and it just sounded like a good idea. So we did it, and we've gotten a lot of compliments since. So apparently it's a good name.
It is a good name. No, it has a refreshing sound to it.
Yeah.
Of course, cold water.
Yeah, and it's already in everybody's brain, right?
Exactly. I love it. I love it. So your son, in many ways, was the inspiration for the founding of the company,
Yes.
And obviously, you all make media that is often targeted towards a Christian audience. Also, I know American values are very important in the films you make. So talk a little bit about the types of projects that you all have done and the types of projects that you all aspire to do.
Well, the first project we did dealt with the subject of how Darwinian evolution is taught in schools, and we did that working closely with the Discovery Institute in Seattle. And the story at the time was a young teacher getting persecuted because he dared, kind of question some of the orthodoxy, and they didn't have the term canceled back then, in the late '90s, early 2000s. So, but that's what they were doing to him for daring, even posing some questions about whether or not these things were true that were being taught, and several of the things that were in the books that he was supposed to teach had since been really abandoned by even the most ardent Darwinists. They Haeckel's embryos. They decided that those were fraudulent pictures. So why was he expected to teach that? That's just one example. Then we, not long after that, started the Drive-Through History series, which we're still doing. We're going to do our 100th show for the 4th of July special that we're doing. And Drive-Through History is an opportunity to reinsert the Christian story and the conservative story back into history and have some fun with it along the way. We wanted to appeal to kids, and in a sense it's kind of turned into a complete family program that kids and parents can watch together and both enjoy. Yeah. And so we've covered many subjects with that. We started with ancient history because we knew that all kids had to study that. And then we went to American history, and then we went to the Holy Land and the New Testament, and now we're doing all the American holidays and telling the history of each of the holidays. And it's been amazing. When we took that on, we just thought, oh, that'll be nice. And all of a sudden, we realize every single holiday story is under attack, dramatically under attack, from Martin Luther King, which was the first one we did, to 4th of July is really in the gun sights of the left. So we've really been, so what it's turned into is a civics lesson. through the telling of our important holidays and days of remembrance. We're doing 9/11, Mother's Day, Father's Day. We even did Valentine's Day and told the story of that. But all of these things have become highly politicized, and so it's been an interesting exercise to do that.
So when you say that you're doing those projects, are those, like a 20-minute, kind of short film explaining things? Is it an hour and a half? What does the format look like for these?
Most of our drive-through history shows are 26 minutes.
Okay.
The specials that we're doing in the holidays are, I think, 55 minutes.
That's great.
And so they're being broadcast on Trinity Broadcast Network. They've been our partner since 2003. Been wonderful. And then we also turn all of these into curricula because we found out that homeschoolers were using them, and they kept saying, "Why don't you have a curriculum to go with this?" And we said, "Well, we're not really in that business." Well, now we are.
Yeah, you are.
And so we created curriculum to go with it and a complete streaming service to offer those.
That's excellent. We know that media has a great influence on society, but how much credit do you think we should really give it? How big of a role truly does the media play in impacting what society looks like?
Well, I used to, since the advent of the smartphone, I used to, every once in a while check in with how many hours a day are people using these devices. And so I did that again before coming here. And they stopped putting hours to it. They just go, okay, 95% of American teenagers have a smartphone, and they use it constantly. So it's no longer 8 or 9 hours a day, which is what it used to be.
Wow.
Now it's just all the time,
Nonstop.
right? And so is there a question as to whether conservatives should be involved in trying to connect with through that device?
Yeah, that's so critical. If we're all going to be on it, we have to be aware of what are our options? What do we actually have to consume? And if there's nothing that's really showing those positive values out there to consume, what do we expect to happen? That's so critical.
We're not in the game. I mean, the other messages will either be neutral or against what we believe.
Yeah. I do think that some conservatives are hesitant to enter the media space because it is thought of as being so left-leaning.
Right.
Were you conservative when you decided, okay, this is something that I really want to pursue? And how did you kind of think through, okay, I'm going to bring my values into this space?
I've always been conservative. I never had a weird moment where I decided to leave the reservation, which I don't know how that happened, but I had great parents. So I've always been kind of stunned at how little interest conservatives have had in that. I understand the importance of books and classical teaching, and I believe in all of that. But I also believe that we're all using these devices. We're all connected. Whether it's we're all consuming huge amounts of media, and we've missed the boat on so many critical points in the I won't use the word evolution. In the advancement of technology or the change in the media landscape. I was in the cable TV business before I created ColdWater Media, and conservatives missed the boat largely there. They could have had an amazing presence for not much money at that time, and the other thing I would say that kind of drives me crazy is the fact that the left has done a really good job of building business models around indoctrinating our kids. And they control the schools, and they control the media, and we pay for it on both sides of that. And so I think from day one, it was important for us to figure out how to create business models so that we could be self-sustaining and not just rely on charitable efforts.
Yeah. So for young people, or really anyone who's thinking, okay, I'm conservative, I have a passion for film or TV or just the media space in general, what would be your advice to them?
It would be to try a lot of things, because you're going to, it's probably not going to be obvious what your path is going to be. There's going to be a lot of twists and turns along the way. And so if you really love it, you should be doing something with it every day, whether you're getting paid for it or not. I saw that passion with my own kids. Mentioned to you that I've got two sons that have a media company together. And they were just putting friends together out there, creating photography sessions, making short films, always trying to figure out how to do it better and to do it creatively, whether they were getting paid to do it or not. And then they figured out how to monetize that later. But I think that's the big indication of whether or not it's your passion, is if you're consumed with it, you know.
Yeah.
And if you but it's not easy to just say, oh, go here and you'll get a job doing this, you know, because it's still being created, this conservative media landscape.
And what are the skill sets that individuals should really be pursuing? I mean, is there a greater need for people behind the cameras or directing or all of the above?
I think the tendency has been to be a bit of a jack of all trades. You know, when we started, it was, and still, like in the movie business, if you look in Hollywood, you know, union shop, everybody has their very specific task, and they do large projects, and it's important that everybody knows what they're doing and does it quickly and well. But in the world that I operate in, pretty much everybody does a couple things. Yeah. And the host of Drive-Through History, Dave Stotts, was a camera guy first, and then an editor, and then he was so funny. I just said, "You need to be in front of the camera," you know. And but he still edits the shows.
Wow.
And so he's been able to work out a good life where we're out shooting in the field, traveling, having to do all that, but then he can be home a lot and edit.
Yeah.
And he long ago got over the weirdness of editing himself.
Yeah. Just have to get over that.
Yeah, exactly.
So how can our listeners find all of the wonderful products that you produce, all of the series? How can they discover and follow your work?
Well, ColdWaterMedia.com and DriveThroughHistory.com would be the two places to go.
Very, very simple.
Yeah.
Great. Well, Jim, thank you so much for your time. We really, really appreciate it and appreciate the work that you're doing.
Thank you, Virginia.
So important.
Appreciate you having me.